In today's video, we have Bethany Funke, Richard Bitonti, that mysterious time delay, a line in the probable cause affidavit no one's really talking about that could validate Howard Blum's allegations, and how all these things put together could explain the rush to demolish the home. And if an open conversation is something you prefer, then this is the place for you. Welcome to The Point, so let's talk about it.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
We were all told that there were two surviving roommates, but both of them were asleep, they didn't see anything, and as soon as they woke up, authorities were called.
To be honest, you're going to have to trust us on that at this point.
But when the probable cause affidavit is released, we were told then that Dylan Mortensen went into a frozen shock phase.
To be honest, you're going to have to trust us on that at this point.
Back into her room, she went to sleep. Nobody saw nothing, nobody heard nothing, nobody was aware of the situation until they woke up that afternoon, and then somebody with the roommate's phone contacted authorities. And Dylan Mortensen has been the heavy focus of a lot of this. She is supposedly the eyewitness. And Bethany Funke has largely sat in the background to a degree in this whole conversation surrounding the roommates. And that all, of course, would change when the affidavit of Richard Bitonti became public knowledge. Now, we won't dive too heavy into all that happened, but to sum it up, Bryan Kohberger's defense believes Bethany Funke is a material witness. And they wanted her to come back to Idaho to testify at the preliminary hearing. Now, Bethany Funke had an attorney, and their attorneys fought with Bryan Kohberger's attorneys over what exactly should happen. They did not believe Bethany Funke should go from Nevada to sit in Idaho for a period of a couple days to maybe even a week, and that she had already been through enough. And for the most part, the general public agreed that the roommates had been through enough, that this was just another defensive ploy to cause further trauma. Some had even got on this platform and raised the allegation that this was nothing more than Bryan Kohberger wanting to look into the eyes of somebody that was supposed to be a victim. Ultimately, it would be decided that Bryan Kohberger's defense team would talk with Bethany Funke in Nevada. Then, of course, do we not have the decision made that this would be a grand jury indictment? So there's no need for Bethany Funke to go up there altogether, and she doesn't need to talk to anybody at this particular point. Now, in the middle of all this chaos and the accusations going back and forth, it is important to note that that affidavit wasn't a complete fabrication. It wasn't necessarily a ploy. The affidavit itself was signed by a magistrate judge. So clearly something within Exhibit 1, 2, or 3 that has been redacted had indicated to an impartial member of the court that this needed to happen. So to say this is a complete fabrication is being fairly one-sided in my own opinion. If you disagree with me, you can let me know. But the question stems back to then, what did Bethany Funke see? What did she hear? Now, it was the mirror that would report Bethany Funke saw an unclothed man exiting out towards the sliding glass window of the home. The counter to that particular argument, though, is, well, if Bethany Funke was asleep and she was in the first floor of the home, how did she get to the second floor to witness all this? And then if she saw all this, why did they not contact authorities? Remember what Richard Bitonti said in that affidavit, though. She has information that is unique to her experiences and cannot be provided by any other witness. What that is essentially saying is what Bethany Funke has told the authorities cannot be corroborated by Dylan Mortensen in the home. And when you look at that probable cause affidavit, is her name not mentioned only in a few places? Well, number one, she is the primary witness to Ethan and Xana's location before the incident. And where were they located at? At the Sigma Chi house. Now, her statements to the authorities may have something to do with what has allegedly been going on at Sigma Chi, according to the online rumors. That maybe there was a fight. maybe there was an argument, and maybe there was something said at that particular party that only she is aware of. Or maybe it could be that from her particular location in the home, as she is looking out the window, she saw maybe one or two people exiting the home during the time of this incident. Keep in mind she was on the first floor, so her window would have had a direct view to the driveway and to the road that takes them to their home. And that could have been what she told the authorities. Maybe she saw an individual or individuals exiting the property during the time of this incident or around the time of this incident, and that would not necessarily be something that Dylan Mortensen would be able to corroborate, because she is the witness to the bushy eyebrowed individual clad in black as they're exiting out of the screen door. Now, what is factual and what is not factual, we just won't know until the trial. But in terms of Bethany Funke's own individual experiences that can't be corroborated by anybody else, it would be either at Sigma Chi or would it not be what she saw from her bedroom. But then you get to the confusing statement of, well, she was asleep. She didn't hear anything.
I mean, to be honest, you're going to have to trust us on that at this point.
So what could she have possibly seen or heard in the home? Because she is not listed in the probable cause affidavit of giving any type of eyewitness testimony to anything that she saw that night or anything that she heard. Well, there is a line in the probable cause affidavit that may be more telling than what we're aware of. And I'll pull it up for you right here. The combination of Mortensen's statement, reviews of forensic downloads of records from Funke's and Mortensen's phone. Now we will reiterate that. They have downloaded the phone records of Bethany and Dylan's phone, and they have used those records to solidify what they are saying the time of this attack was. But if they were asleep, and if they weren't communicating whatsoever about this particular incident, what possible information would be in their phones to validate this time of attack? Remember when I did this video right here, and it was alleged that Howard Blum wrote he had communications that indicated the roommates were wide awake, and that he had alleged information that they could hear what was going on room from room, and that they were supposedly communicating with each other, whether that be individual or in some type of home group text, we don't know yet. But that video was met with very mixed reviews on this particular channel. Some individuals said I was jumping the gun a little bit. Others had said that there's been nothing to validate this. And others had even got on there and said Howard Blum has posted articles before. He is doing this strictly for profit, and his allegations have been refuted on more than one occasion. Now, his reply to all this backlash pertaining to that particular story, and to paraphrase it a little bit, I have stuff to validate what I am saying, so I am not going to go back on this particular article. Now, at this point, will we not put two and two together and say, okay, these downloads of phone records would indicate some type of communication between all of the roommates, or at least two of them, who were communicating and responding back and forth? And if that is the case, and they are using this to validate their time of attack, then how could Dylan Mortensen be in a shock phase or Bethany Funke not be aware of anything that is going on? Of course, this is all speculation, and we are just raising questions here. And if the roommates were awake and texting, what accounts for that massive time delay? We have talked about that latent footprint. We don't know who it goes to. We were told it was similar to a Van-style shoe, but we all also know they only make reference to a diamond pattern. But the fact that that print is latent would indicate that somebody had tried to attempt to clean that up. That is what latent means. And if the possibility is that they were awake, what were they communicating? Were they communicating out of fear? Were they telling each other, don't call authorities, don't call 911, don't make a peep, the person may be in the home? Or were they communicating, I saw this, what did you see, what are you hearing? These are all valid questions that do deserve to be answered. And what exactly has caused that massive gap in the time will have to be answered in trial. And how does this tie to the demolition of the home? The focus that everybody seems to be circling around is that this home was in a particular location where it can be scouted from multiple angles, from multiple areas. And they need to keep this home up so that a potential juror could go to these individual spots and see what windows the possible suspect was looking into as he made his plans to commit this type of attack. But where that doesn't necessarily make sense to me is that if the state believes they have their guy and the university is confident that they have their guy, would they all not want every single piece of evidence to be available for the jury so that they can ensure they have done absolutely everything in their power to convict the person they are saying that did this? But what if there is something in Bethany Funke's statement, though? What if she told authorities something that she saw from her own bedroom that could only be corroborated if you went into that home and stood in her bedroom and looked out the window she looked at? Would that not raise some cause for concern for the prosecution? It is safe to say at the end of the day that whatever the defense is saying Bethany Funke has seen or said has some degree of truth to it, since at the very least a magistrate judge signed off on a document requesting her presence in Idaho. It is a very touchy subject when you talk about the roommates. And make no mistake about it, the defense does not want to paint themselves as the villains in this particular story. If it is found out they are making blatant accusations towards one of the surviving roommates, that story will not go over well in a courtroom in front of a jury. So to say this is all fabricated isn't necessarily true. Now, are we to believe the mirror story that she saw an individual running out of the back of the home who happened to not have any clothes on? And if you do believe that, then that goes back on the prosecution's statement that the roommates were asleep and weren't aware of the situation. It is interesting to note that if she had all this evidence that would exonerate Bryan Kohberger as the suspect, why would they have her listed as the second possible witness? These are all fair questions at the end of the day. But it is certain she saw something. And when we wonder why there is such a rush to tear down this home, especially considering it seems the prosecution has everything that they could possibly need or want to prove Bryan Kohberger did this, what sense does it make to remove a key piece of evidence? Unless that key piece of evidence validates something that would exonerate Bryan Kohberger. If you disagree with any of this, you can let me know down in the comments below. But a lot of people have forgotten that exculpatory evidence. And a lot of people are saying the only reason the home should stay up is because it would prove certain vantage points that the perpetrator used to look into windows, and it would validate the ease at which an individual could move through the home. But to tear down something that completely validates what the prosecution is saying makes no sense. There is a possibility they want to rush to tear down the home because there is something within these interviews that could potentially point the finger at somebody else. If you see any of this differently, let me know down in the comments below. Other than that, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here. Y'all stay safe. I'll catch you in the next one.